Hi everyone, and welcome to the Practice Growth with Pras podcast. I'm your host, Pras Murthy, CFO and co-founder at Dr. Multimedia, where for the last 10 years I've been helping practices grow all across the country. We started this podcast so we could dive deeper into the issues around practice growth, from online marketing to the way you run your business. We know doctors are busy people and you don't have a lot of time to study these kinds of topics, so we're hoping this audio podcast makes it really easy to stay up to date with what's going around the country. We'll be interviewing top doctors, successful practice managers, and other experts in the field. Without further ado, let's get started. You know, what we've seen over the years is that all this content already exists. You know, everything that you need to know about online marketing, you can probably find if you sit down and watch dozens of hours of videos and learn some code. But that's just not realistic for our clients. They're too busy. Their time is so limited, especially at work. You guys are so busy running your practices that you really don't have a lot of time for development and SEO and coding. You don't even have time to, improve certain elements of your business, let alone the website, which you don't really see or feel as a factor in your business. So with that in mind, I wanted to talk about SEO, which is a hot, topic no matter who you are. Everybody always wants to rank higher on Google. They want to be at the top of the page. They want to know why their competitor is ranking above them. All common questions that we hear every day, and the answers are always so involved, and there's so many different aspects to it that it's hard to really explain in a succinct way. So with that said, we want to dive into 5 tangible things that you should be tracking or monitoring in order to make sure that you're getting the most out of your website, your SEO, and your online presence. Now, if you don't know what SEO is, it stands for search engine optimization. And where this all comes from is that doctors call us all the time or see us at a conference and want to talk about their website, and they have all these complaints, like I said, whether or not they're ranking on the top page or whether they're showing on the maps or their pay-per-click ad isn't working or they think it's not working. And I always start with the same question, which is, hey doctor, how many people came to your website last month? And any digital marketer would probably be shocked to see the answers that I get, and more importantly, the large percentage of doctors and office managers that have no idea how to answer that question. I mean, almost nobody knows the exact number, which I wish they did, but a lot of people couldn't even give me a range within 100 or 200 or sometimes 500 for a busy practice. And to us, that's shocking, right? Given that this is our industry and this is what we do and these are the numbers that we look at every day, it's hard for us to fathom someone thinking about their website without immediately looking at their analytics numbers and knowing how many people came last month. But we know that that's not the same for you. Even if you get the numbers, even if you have Google Analytics, you might not know what sense to make out of any of those numbers, so it all just could be gibberish to you. The tips and techniques we're going to go over today are the equivalent of looking of the chart when you're seeing a patient. And if you don't have any of these numbers, it's like you're walking into an appointment blind and you're not referencing the past and you're just kind of guessing based on what the patient is telling you or what you see. So I don't have to belabor the point, but you know how dangerous that would be and how difficult it would make your jobs. And the same is true on our side. So if I can teach you all out there to start tracking these numbers, and if you do it over time, then in a year, 2 years, 3 years, you're going to be able to make a lot of these assessments yourself. So, all right, without further ado, what are some areas to look at? The first I've already alluded to, Google Analytics. If you're not getting analytics reports, and if you're a Dr. Multimedia client, we send them the first week of every month. We've actually translated down the more complex Google Analytics numbers into an easier to read, easier to digest, the numbers that we think you care about. But you should be getting this no matter who you are, a Dr. Multimedia client or not. If you're not, make sure Google Analytics is set up on your website. Make sure that you're logging into Google Analytics and make sure you're tracking those numbers. In short, it's going to tell you how many people came to the website. And if you're doing a good job and if your SEO is going up, the number of people coming to your website should be going up. If you notice the number keeps going down, it means you're doing something wrong and you need to make some changes or adjustments. And if you don't know what those are, give us or another agency a call and get an idea of where your problems might be. We'd be happy to help if you reach out to us. Now, the second thing you want to set up is Google Search Console. So Google Analytics will tell you how many people came to the website. That's all specific to your domain name, your website. Google Search Console is going to reveal information about the searches that people are doing that relate to your business. So the most important number that will come out of that as it relates to your website and your SEO is your number of impressions. And just to clarify that, if you don't know what an impression is when someone sees something. So a lot of times when people do a Google search, they search for a certain term. You see a whole bunch of websites, right? You see some ads, you see some map, you see a bunch of websites below. That doesn't mean you click on all of them. So your Google Analytics are going to tell you who clicked on your website. But the Google Search Console, if you look at impressions, are going to tell you how often your website was seen. So maybe you were at the bottom of page 1, so you didn't get a lot of clicks. Maybe you were on page 2, and nobody really went there, but you're getting those impressions even if they don't visit the website. So again, if your website's rising up the rankings, you should be getting more impressions. If you're starting to show for new keywords that you weren't before, you should be getting more impressions. And Google Search Console can help you track your impressions. And if, again, the common theme here, if they're going up, keep doing what you're doing a good job. If you notice them going down, it's time for a change. Reach out to someone and get help about what it is, test and use some variables. Now, the third thing that it's helpful to track, and now we're getting into slightly more advanced topics, are your backlinks. If you don't know what backlinks are, it's a conversation for a whole nother day, but in short, it's how your website is linked and how other websites are linked to your website. Very important role in Google's algorithm and just your presence online. So there are a lot of tools out there, and just if you don't know what a backlink is, start by Googling backlinks and understanding. We have some in-house tools that we use. You can sign up for a number of different services, but don't just take a look at your own backlinks. I would also look at your competitors' backlinks. So you can just put in a website and you can get an idea of how many backlinks they have. So knowing how you stack up to your competitors, if someone has way more than you, take a look at what they're doing. If you notice your number going up over time, if you notice it going down, if you notice it staying flat, that lets you know that this is an area that you want to take a look at. The next area that you should be tracking is the content that you're producing. How much content are you putting out? Is it, and we talked a whole session yesterday on content creation and different kinds of content and what you should put out. So if you want to start there, feel free to take a look. But what I'm talking about today is just how much content is getting out there. Is it once a week, once a month, once a quarter? In a perfect world, which I know we don't live in, but in a perfect world, I would love to see you guys putting out 3 to 4 pieces of content a week. I know it's a lot of work, but that's going to put you in the best situation right now, as of today, for your online marketing. Some people are putting out multiple pieces of content a day. That it might be overkill, and it certainly might be the benefit might not be as much as how much work it is. But if you're doing something once a month, once every couple weeks, it simply isn't enough. And when you're talking about content, make sure you're thinking about LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, your website. The list goes on and on. So there's lots of places where you can be putting it. So shoot for that 3 to 4 times a week. If you're not there yet, work your way towards it. And then lastly, one thing to track are going to be your indexed pages. You can also get this out of your Google Search Console once you've set up an account there. And just to explain the terminology, indexed pages is basically the pages of your website that are showing up on Google searches. So there's obviously, or I hope there's more to your website than just your homepage. You theoretically have a lot of different pages on your website. And like we talked about yesterday, when it comes to driving traffic through those other pages, your individual pages can show up on Google during search results, and you can get traffic directly to a page of your website. So knowing how many of your pages are on Google, called index pages, and how many opportunities you have out there to draw traffic will give you a good idea of how you're growing over time. So I hope you're adding more pages as you go. That's part of creating content. But more importantly, I hope your index pages are going up as time goes on, because that will let you know you're having a larger and larger presence on Google, because there's more opportunities. More opportunities probably means more impressions, which was number 2 on our list. More impressions is usually going to result to more visits, which was number 1 on our list. So these are all really related, but tracking your index pages, that's something that not very many of my clients are doing, if any, on their own. We're obviously here to help and keep an eye on that. But if you're not, that's something that you're going to want to start doing. So the first step, like I said, is just getting signed up for these services, making sure you know what these numbers are. Then over time you can track them. After you track them, you can decide what needs to be done, if anything needs to be done, and you can see how well you're doing. It's not just about if you are doing well, it's important to know how well you're doing. The only way you can really do that is with numbers, and these are just 5 kind of basic ones that you can sit down and look at, and you can check in when you have time, once a month, once every 2 months, and get an idea of how you're doing. How was this quarter compared to last quarter? Are we improving? Are we progressing? So I hope that you guys go out there, and if you're not already getting analytics, if you're not already on Google Search Console, if you're not already counting the amount of traffic that you're doing, if you're not looking at backlinks, incorporate those. And I know, I get it, you're busy. A lot of this might even be gibberish as of today, but the more we tell you about it, the more we make a big deal out of it, the more some of you will slowly adopt 1 or 2. Maybe you're already doing Google Analytics, and after today, you're willing to sign up for Google Search Console and start looking at impressions, baby steps. But do those and keep repeating them, and eventually you'll be looking at the main key factors that anyone should be looking at, not just, internet marketers out there. And then when a doctor comes up to us and says, well, why am I not on the first page of Google? Or how do I get to number 1? And we ask you all these questions about how many of these things you have, and you have the answers. That's when you can have a real honest conversation. Okay, you need to do this. You need to stop doing this over here. This hasn't been working. You need to change your strategy. Instead of this kind of content, let's put out that kind of content. It's hard to really have even that conversation unless you've been tracking your numbers and you have some numbers to look at, just like your patient charts. So hope you guys enjoyed those 5 tips and 5 things that you need to track to help with your SEO presence, to help you monitor how well you're doing, to really start to have some analytics and some data and some history behind the decisions you're making. Because otherwise, when a contract is up and you have to renew a service, how do you know if it was working? Did those Yelp ads help or hurt? We don't really know unless you've been watching the numbers and you can say, well, before I ran these ads, I had this, and after I had them, I had this. Those numbers aren't very different, so I don't see the point in continuing to pay money on those. Maybe I should spend it somewhere else that can make a bigger difference. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Practice Growth with Pras. I'm your host, Pras Murthy, and if you have any questions or comments, please visit us at drmultimedia.com. Also, be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're constantly sharing new content as part of our mission to take online marketing topics and make them relevant to your practice. And if you like what you heard, please tell a friend and leave us a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Thanks so much for listening, and we can't wait to do it again.